Okay, so now we're in segment three. We could probably say more about this, but I think that maybe we should leave it for now and save any for questions.
Yeah.
We're going to, as usual, have our last segment be a question and answer session. So I know that what we've said has been very multifaceted and maybe a little confusing, and there is more to say about it, but we'll answer questions about it at the end. What would you like to talk about next, Terry?
I could talk a little bit more about why I think that this assassination squad could be linked to the former U.S. leadership.
Okay, why don't you do that, and I'll think of a way to segue it into other
And
other events.
that first of all that we
And I'm gonna go get a drink of water. It's a great thing about the informal setting.
first of all we know that there is a connection between Iraq contracting and, in fact, the real Knights of Malta, many of the people involved in Blackwater are involved with the real Knights of Malta, and I was, in researching this fake order that claims to be the Knights of Malta, they claim to be the real one, of course, that some members of them were involved in Iraq war contracting as security contractors. There were two Italians, a married couple, that had run some sort of Iraq contracting scheme that was that they were connected to these knights, the KMFAP,
And as we know,
and
you don't get
IBSSA.
contracts in Iraq unless you suck Dick Cheney's dick.
Yeah, that's kind of a requirement.
Or he has sucked yours and you have photos.
Yeah, particularly something, these were mercenary type contractors. The article that I had found had been alleging that some of their people were captured by insurgents in Iraq and that they had actually paid a ransom of some kind, and there was press coverage of this in Italy, where they thought that this was very strange. And the Italian article said that this Order of Knights in Malta had been investigated before in connection with in 1980 a bombing of the main train station in Bologna. And that was at a time when there was a great deal of economic unrest in Italy. There were a lot of strikes.
Italy's always had a really volatile government.
Yeah, and,
since the end of World War
and
II,
that,
they've had
and
like
that
45
the investigators
governments.
believed that the bombing in Bologna was actually set by fascist groups so that the government could essentially blame it, or people connected with the government could blame it on communists.
So interesting how that sort of false flag shit crops up all the time. Yet another reason why I feel like the CIA, the Mossad, and every other fucking intelligence agency on Earth is playing out of the same
And this
rulebook.
is I mentioned this and Blackwater as examples where there is some sort of strange ceremonial component with knighthoods that I've also ran into that when I was investigating the ownership of the Ukrainian ship MV Fina, which was carrying 33 Ukrainian tanks supposedly to Kenya when it was captured by pirates a few months ago.
Oh, the pirate thing we love.
Yeah, and the MV Fina, although it was Ukrainian crewed and managed, was owned by a shell corporation in Panama that was believed to be American, and that I managed to find the website for the lawyer that filed the papers and things, and that he does work in setting up corporations in Panama for various foreign people, but also he's extremely eccentric, and that he also is interested in the strange things involving, and he has actually his own order of knights that he claims to be related to Bellingshausen, the discoverer of Antarctica.
I think we should start an order of knights.
Yeah. Then we could go up to Auburn and
Exactly. We could have a little bit of a night social, like our nightclub and their nightclub.
We could taunt them. We could say me,
because we're the knights who say me.
No.
Anyway, so that's about half of this segment. Just to keep things rolling along, would you like to say more about this? Because then that would be three segments on this. Or would you like to move on to one of the others? Yeah. So we don't, that's the thing we've been most excited about this week, but there were a couple of really...
I could probably talk for another hour about this topic.
We can answer questions, though, but, the Constitution hang... Yeah, well, okay, Mad Dog, you're new, so I'm going to let you know that this is sort of an unusual formatted show for us, because we've been talking about this movie, but usually in our last segment, we answer questions. So, if you ask a question that's relevant to something we're saying, we'll totally try to notice it and jump in. Otherwise, you should save questions like, that's a wonderful question, and we could talk about it, but maybe save it for the last segment. So the thing that no, it's totally fine. You've not been here before. Just letting you know that's how we do it. I just don't want you to be upset that I'm not answering it now. I'm just saying I'd love to answer it in like 15 minutes. So, what do you think? Souter in 4 minutes? Can we talk about that?
Okay.
Souter is now retiring from the Supreme Court. He was a Bush 1 nominee and appointee, and although he was nominated by Bush, he ended up being fairly liberal, which has a tendency to happen with their nominees.
Well,
I mean, Sandra Day O'Connor
you have to
was a
remember that
Reagan
Bush's
nominee.
father was, he was not right-wing in the modern Republican sense. I mean, he was, as a former CIA director, he was not really that interested in domestic politics.
But the thing is, I have to say, Bush 1 is one of the scariest motherfuckers in politics that I can think of. So even though he was a better president than his son...
that presumably his nominees would be, interested in issues that are important to people like George H.W. Bush.
Like
that is
making lots of money.
Yeah, like his original thought is, I don't want like a rabid anti-abortion activist or somebody like that on the Supreme Court.
And of course, that was one of the places where they started. I mean, you always hear about a litmus test for people in the Supreme Court. That was, in terms of when I became aware of it, maybe it's just because I was 12 at the time and wasn't aware of anything to do with the Supreme Court before then. But that's when I remember people starting to talk about a litmus test, particularly in terms of abortion. So the weird thing about him retiring is he's only 69, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg is way older, and...
It's also conspicuous that it happened right after Bush left office.
Yeah,
so,
well, I'm sure that he was.
He did not want his successor appointed by that guy.
So even though I don't have strong feelings about Souter, except that I like the fact that he's been independent and not necessarily totally characteristic of the person who appointed him, I'm happy to start getting Obama appointees on the court, because not only do we have Scalia, who's a holdover, but the two appointees we got. Under Bush 2, I'm afraid of them a little bit, and Roberts is going to be there forever and ever and ever. So, and Souter's never gotten married, correct?
Yes.
And he's from New Hampshire, so I think he's going to go and he's going to read some books. And,
either that or get married, but...
I would love to see Clarence Thomas gone. An interesting tidbit about Clarence Thomas, I believe it was the last session, not the current one. In the entire session, he did not say one word. He just, doesn't participate. Not only is he right-wing and, a sex offender and, kind of a skeevy guy, but he doesn't even really seem to want to be there. So I would love to see Thomas go. Of course Scalia, of course Roberts, of course... Yep. What's the other new Italian guy? Can't remember his name. Alito, that's the other guy. Yep. So anyway, it's a big thing. Well, I have no idea who he might appoint. It would be nice to see another woman on the court. But the main thing is, it's going to be somebody chosen by Barack Obama and not somebody chosen by George Bush or Ronald Reagan.
Hopefully it's not someone chosen, primarily on the basis of whether they let the executive get away with things, which I assume was primary in Bush's appointments.
And the thing is, although I am pretty happy with Obama overall, especially considering how hard I was on him before the election, that is something I'm still worried about with him. He does seem to want as much wiggle room as he can get, and I understand why. But we got 45 more seconds. Anything else to say about Souter or the Supreme Court?
I can't think of anything.
Alright, so we're going to end this segment. I keep grabbing for the wrong mic, and then we're going to come back and we're going to